Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you folks doing today? So this video actually, is directed towards Canada, the Commonwealth, and North America as a whole. And that is because yesterday was the Canadian federal elections. And Trudeau, the Prime Minister, is going back to Sussex Drive with a bit of a chink in his armor. The Liberal Party in Canada went away with a minority in their government over their majority that they had prior. Now, this is a little bit confusing for me, considering I'm not Canadian, I'm actually American. So, if I get anything wrong, please correct me. I'm not very familiar with the parliamentary system of Canada. But I did a little bit of research, and I want to see if I got the whole picture correct. So, bear with me, okay? So, Trudeau is going back to Sussex Drive as the Prime Minister of Canada with a minority government controlled by the Liberals. Now, necessarily, that is not a great thing for the Liberal Party, considering now that they don't have the swing that they used to have. On top of that, the popular vote definitely went to the Conservatives as they gained over 20 seats. Worse off, you have a third party there that's also just as strong, if not stronger, in their respective region, and that is the Bloc Québécois, or the Bloc of Quebec. Now, this is actually kind of significant when it comes to Canada, because I don't believe there has been a time when there has been three parties that have been this powerful at this point in time. Quebec, in my knowledge, has always been a province that have always wanted to be independent, primarily because it really hasn't associated itself with Canada, and more as a sovereign French-Canadian province or country. I know Alberta has been dealing with the same thing, and secession movements all over Canada seems to be commonplace, to my knowledge. But the Liberal Party is now in the minority. They don't have the minority. They don't have the 170 MPs. Now, I have a bunch of my friends who are in Canada who are all quite annoyed by this, seeing Trudeau surviving just barely in this. But in some ways, I'm actually kind of happy about this. Now, I hold your rage. Hold your rage. There's a method to the madness, as there always is. In this case, the method of the madness is Brexit. Now, for anybody who is not part of the Commonwealth or not familiar with the Commonwealth, little back history. The Commonwealth is any country that is connected to the British Crown, such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc., etc. Now, what happens with Brexit, since they have been fighting over it in London, is going to create humongous ripples all over the respective nations. Canada, being considered a Commonwealth country, does have some control under them. Actually, no. They are controlled by the British monarch. Correction. And that is Queen Elizabeth II. But we also have the Parliament in London, who has been dealing with Brexit, and all of the fight they've been dealing with that. They want to leave by October 31st, which is going to cause ripples all over the place. So, why am I kind of happy with Trudeau? Well, it's because of the scandals he's been dealt with, that has been kind of plaguing him for the last few months. Normally, in that case, you would have that political leader basically character assassinated at that point. Their career's over. In this case, he survived. which is interesting when you consider all the things that has happened. We're dealing with legal cases. We're dealing with the blackface incident. We're talking about several other incidents on top of that, which are a little bit more minor than these. So, the reason or the rationale in my mind is going at that he is going to be a sacrificial lamb. He is going to be one of the main players who fall. And he's not going to fall by an election. Far from it. Canada is too strong for him to collapse, just like that. He's going to collapse upon his own weight. He's going to have to deal with the ramifications of the things he's done. And that is not going to happen with an election. Definitely not. Canada does not have the electoral system that would allow that to happen. Now, being an American, I'm a bit biased with our electoral college and how we do not have the popular vote determine how everything is ran. But, with that said, Trudeau has the laundry list that could definitely deal with humongous amounts of ramification. Even though he is the son of a very popular prime minister, himself has been dealing with things for quite some time that, after a while, the devil will have his due. You can only do so many things before you escape your own judgment. Now, what we're going to have in the next few months, if not in the next few years, is the USMCA, which is going to be the successor to NAFTA. Mexico recently had the election, elected their new president. Canada, yesterday, had the most recent federal election. The only one who hasn't had their election yet is the United States, here in America. Trump's re-election will happen in 2020. But until that happens, you're going to see a buildup of frustration and anger that I don't think you have seen thus far. The Conservatives in Canada have grown dramatically. They have reached past 100 MPs, which means they are within striking distance of the next general election over there. With the 26 odd Liberal Prime Minister members of Parliament there, they have lost. They do not have very much room to spare. And with the Bloc in Quebec gaining steam, grabbing as many members of Parliament as they do, that's unprecedented. You only have the three really there within some form of power or strength. So, what am I thinking now? What I am thinking at this moment, besides him being a sacrificial lamb, is that he's going to be used as an example. There's nobody better in my mind that could be used as an example for the corruption that has been well established in the entire world. Of course, the United States, we do have our people who are going to be dealing with very strong ramifications for their actions. I mean, we just take your pick. You can take your pick anywhere, quite frankly. The names have basically made a list long enough to write a book. Now, everyone is at this point saying the elections were rigged. There is nothing more here than a farce, which I agree. I strongly agree. There has been nothing more than corruption here, and there is nothing more than a show. A show which looks like it's at its tipping point. We're at the climax. We're not at the end. We're not at the resolution. We're at the climax. The point of highest action. The point of when the conflicts will be resolved. Where is the conflict here? The conflict is here is the amount of time that Canada has eroded the rights of their people, the amount of time they have eroded the idea of common decency and the amount of times that they have dismissed the idea of common sense and genuine interaction. And Brexit is going to create a railroad effect to all Commonwealth locations. I had a friend over in Australia. She was talking about how Australia was dealing with a very similar thing before their most recent Prime Minister took control. I think it's Prime Minister in Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's Prime Minister there. But before their most recent election, they were dealing with a very similar problem as Canada. So I would not be surprised as when things eventually devolve from what they are currently at, that Canada is going to deal with a very similar situation and will have a very similar result. I don't know very many people who like Trudeau. In fact, I don't know very many people who like the Liberal Party, to be quite honest. The idea of the political correctness is something that I have not been able to wrap my head around, considering that it is beyond logic, beyond any form of sense or dignity. The fact that it goes against the idea of humanity as itself. See that? I don't have to use political correctness. I can say humanity, and you're not using people kind. The fact that Trudeau used the word people kind blows my mind. There are other words that are there within the English dictionary that are politically correct and at the same time doesn't require artificial manipulation of the English language. He is going to be used as the domino within the North American continent. Eventually, what's going to happen is that people are going to be so pissed off and so angry that they're going to require things to change drastically. We had it here in the United States. We elected Trump. And you had it happen in the UK with Boris Johnson. You had the same thing happen in Australia. I forgot his name, to be honest. It bugs me. But he had the same thing.